All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. So glad you could join us. Just a few minutes here, we'll be joined by former presidential candidate Herman Cain. But before we get to that, it's not too often that we talk about, a major championship in golf and two of arguably the biggest names, in golf in the last, 20-plus years, Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson. Well, guess what, JD? Both of them missed the cut in the British Open, and it wasn't even close. Even Rory McIlroy missed the cut.
And so did Gary Woodland.
Well, yeah, but, the guy's won one major.
I'm pretty unhappy about that.
Well,
I made 550 bets with a certain sports book that I shouldn't have made.
I understand, but the point I was trying to make was that the two biggest names, or arguably, in the last 20 years, missed the cut. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? You look at the leaderboard right now. J.B. Holmes, guys like that. Not great for golf, but you do see a couple big names up. Brooks Koepka's only, I believe, 3 shots off the lead. That guy is like a robot on the golf course. He's unbelievable. And, you see a couple other big names up there, Jordan Spieth, Justin Rose. But seeing Tiger Woods struggle the way he did, it's tough to watch. And after the round, he said, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but he said along the lines of, look, there's some tournaments I'm going to be in contention. There's some tournaments I'm not going to be in contention. It's part of getting old. That's really what he said. And I guess you could sympathize with that, and he's being honest. I just look at guys like Brooks Koepka. You okay over there? You enjoying your chips?
Thoroughly.
Yeah, right? Okay.
I am thoroughly enjoying.
It's not like we can hear that on the radio or anything.
My potato skins.
Yeah. It's not like we can hear
TGI fried potato skins.
It's not like it's loud or anything, or we can hear it.
No, it's not.
It's only radio, so don't worry. It's okay. Anyway. No, but I think there's a lot of people that aren't going to be watching the British Open this weekend because of that, because of the fact that Tiger Woods is not in contention. Phil Mickelson didn't even make the cut either. These are characters of the game, and all due respect to Brooks Koepka,
Justin Rose, Tommy Fleetwood.
I understand, but people aren't, in my opinion, the point I'm trying to make is I don't think people are going to be tuning in this weekend to watch Brooks Koepka and Tommy Fleetwood. At least not a lot. The diehards are always going to watch. But kind of shaping out to be not great for golf the way this major is shaping up here. Are people really going to tune in on Sunday if J.B. Holmes is winning the tournament? All due respect to J.B. Holmes, I don't think so. It's bad for golf. Tiger Woods is getting old. Phil Mickelson's getting old. I don't think Phil's ever going to be in contention in a major ever again. I don't think his body will allow him to do that. I know he was bragging last week that he's lost 15 pounds, right? But I just don't think that's going to happen. So I think it's bad for golf. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. I don't know if I'm going to be watching the British Open this weekend. I just don't know. We'll see what happens. Listen, if Brooks Koepka's up there with Justin Rose, and by the way, it's nice to see Jordan Spieth back on the leaderboard. He's playing very well. So that's certainly a good thing.
He's -5. John Rahm's playing good. The Cooch is playing pretty well.
I'm not saying there's not any big names up there.
It'll be interesting.
I'm not saying there's like I said, I'm not saying there's not any big names up there.
It's just surprising. I think it's more surprising that Rory, considering where he's from, didn't make the cut.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty surprising.
Yeah. A lot of people had Rory McIlroy as the favorite in most books, and rightfully so. He played well today in round 2, but in the first round he was nowhere to be found, for lack of a better term. Nowhere to be found. So that's a little bit disappointing when you look at the leaderboard. But again, like I said, there are some big names up there. So it's not like there's nobody at the top of the leaderboard. But I just don't think a Brooks Koepka gets people excited like if the Tiger or Phil were up there. That's all.
Hey, did we get ditched by Herman Cain?
I don't know. We're waiting on that.
Okay.
But yes, we're waiting on that.
Because I will boycott Godfathers for at least 3 weeks if that happens.
We're waiting on that. Of course, if you listen to the first hour, we're talking heavily on the Trump comments, the chant, send her back, send her back. And I think it's pretty blatant, folks, that this has to do with race. I think it's pretty blatant. I think it's pretty obvious. And when you look back at that chant, you look back at what transpired in North Carolina, and I've seen it on social media, and what really gets my blood boiling, and we see this 10-year-old girl, 10-year-old white girl. standing up with her parents, maybe, I don't know, 20, 30 feet from the president. And when that chant starts, send her back. This little young girl, and I don't blame her for it, she's just doing what she thinks is the right thing to do at this rally. But when you hear her chant, send her back with these other people, it's a sad day in America. I do think it is a big deal. And
now, I will say this. I do think that if Omar had not, or if it was just, if that same chant had been said over a woman who hasn't had a lot of issues like Omar has, who hasn't said anti-Semitic things, who doesn't really have any baggage, that would be racist. But Omar has done quite a few things that aren't exactly savory, to say the least, and she doesn't have the best reputation. So it's not totally unreasonable to assume that possibly it's because of what she has done in office as opposed to her skin color.
I just don't think that's an appropriate excuse.
Well, it wouldn't be if it was like send that whatever, some type of derogatory name, some type of racist name back. A slur. There was no slur used.
I don't think a slur has to be used in order for something to be called racist.
But if a slur was used, you could absolutely call it racist. In this case, you cannot.
What do you mean you cannot?
And again, I'm saying you
go
absolutely
back to your country.
You can't definitively call it racist. You can't.
Yes, you can.
You can call it ignorant. You can call it stupid. You can call it totally impressionable.
So
but you
telling
can't
somebody to go back
call it racist.
Telling somebody to go back to their country when they're from another country, you can't call that racist?
I think you could if she didn't have any baggage. She has a lot of baggage.
So it's
Brian,
racist.
There's a good chance.
So it's only racist.
When she was 13 years old, she pretended to marry her brother to come to the United States of America.
Number one, we don't know if that's true.
If that's true, what do you think about it?
Number one, hold on.
We'll talk what about it. If that's true, what do you think about it?
Number one, we don't know if that's true. So you're giving a hypothetical. And number two, you're defining racism based on someone's activity, whether it was criminal or not. Whether somebody
I'm just saying.
Yes, you are.
A slur, an absolute slur to me is racist. You said this is implied.
Go back to your country.
This is implied. Yeah, her country because of her skin color. It is implied racism, the way that you're making it seem.
But you just said, based on her history, you're okay with it.
I'm saying if she didn't have a history, then it would be more likely to be racist. But since she has a history, it could be for a number of things.
Okay,
Race could be one of them.
Let me ask you a question.
Her performance in office could be one of them.
I'm trying
the
to
things she
understand.
said could be one of them. The fact that she doesn't like the United States clearly and could be one of them.
Okay, but I'm trying to understand where you're coming from.
Race isn't the only one, in my opinion.
So if you have an African American that has committed a lot of crimes, you're okay with somebody throwing out racist stuff at an African American because they're a criminal?
Like a slur, a racist slur?
How about if somebody from Africa?
So you can't use that
How
example.
about if somebody from Africa commits a crime?
Okay.
By the way, Omar.
Are they in office?
By the way.
Are they in office?
What does it matter whether they're in office or not? Racism is racism.
No, are they in office?
What does that matter?
Under what circumstances would I ever say send whoever back to somebody who isn't in office?
You should never say something like that.
She had to be in that platform in the first place for that to be said.
You should never say something like that under any circumstance.
I agree it was ignorant and impressionable. I think it was stupid. I agree with that.
How could you say it's not racist?
I would prefer it to kick her out because I don't think she's fit to be in office.
So of that big white crowd that was,
but it would be different if she didn't have baggage. She has a lot of baggage.
Okay, well,
and so you can't just assume that it was totally racist.
Just because
there could be a lot of reasons that they said that.
Just because somebody has baggage doesn't make it okay to say go back to your country, send her back. I'm sorry, I disagree. I don't think that's a defense. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. Again, 257-5396. Let's go to Scott. Scott, what's going on?
What's up, Scott?
Good. This isn't on the exact topic, so I don't know if you guys want to. I was just curious, and I don't know if you've talked about it this week. I still enjoy the show, but don't listen as much as I used to. In the city of
Wait a second. Why not? We're upset at that. Why not?
Well, it's nothing against you guys. Just change the schedule.
Okay. Scott, we're changing our schedule too. We start 9 o'clock in the morning until noon, August 12th.
That's right.
That'll be even worse.
I'm sorry to hear that, Scott.
I follow you guys on Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah, we have Twitter, SoundCloud, so many different ways.
All right.
I know. I got it.
I appreciate that.
Enjoy it, so.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Scott. Go ahead.
Guys, have you guys already talked about what they did in Berkeley, California this week? Have you guys already covered that on your show?
I don't believe we have, no.
You know how they banned the word man from.
That is absolutely insane. Manholes, crazy.
Yeah, I just wanted to see
Manpower,
what you guys thought
crazy.
of that. Did you see that, Brian?
I did not. I'll be honest with you.
So, like, you can't say we're ordering manpower.
Yeah,
or
the
there's
entire
a manhole.
the entire city of Berkeley has banned the words "man" for manpower,
Well, you know what?
manhole, et cetera,
Scott,
et cetera.
It'd actually be a good topic for you to
Scott,
talk about.
let me give you a perfect example of what you're talking about. I'll compare it to this. NBA owners, they can't be called owners anymore.
Right.
Right. Same thing. Utterly ridiculous. Okay.
So I'm just curious, not to cut you off. If I'm a basketball coach at Berkeley High School and I'm coaching the varsity team, which there is a Berkeley High School, and I say to my team, "You got to guard your man."
Right. No man-to-man
Am I
defense.
gonna get in trouble for that? Am I
That's
going to get in trouble?
Absolutely.
Scott, I hope not, because I think that's completely.
Scott, you will spend time in jail.
Guard your person. Guard your person.
Right.
Yeah,
Isn't
Scott.
that crazy, guys?
Yes,
that's true.
Listen, I think there's a line that.
No man-to-man defense. It's person-to-person defense.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a line that people are crossing that you should never cross.
Person coverage.
I think it's a little bit ridiculous. I think we all know when women are treated unfairly, when there's sexism involved, we know when to call it out.
And the military bases in Berkeley, they can't say man down.
There's nothing wrong with saying a manhole. There's nothing wrong with saying guarding your man. Let me tell you something, Scott. I used to coach basketball.
Right.
If I was coach, and it was a girls' team, by the way, and I said, guard your man, guard your man. If a parent came up to me and said, it's guard your lady, I would laugh in their face. And then if I had to talk to my athletic director, I'd say, you can't be serious. Not to quote John McEnroe, but that's what I would say. I would say, you cannot be serious. Guard your man. I mean, if that offends somebody, listen. And then, people want to label me a liberal and all that other nonsense, but, I'm a pretty logical person when it comes to this stuff. There's nothing wrong with a manhole. There's nothing wrong with guarding your man. If somebody is upset, and when you talk about snowflakes and people way on the left, that's who they're talking about. I'm not one of them. Scott, we are in agreement, my friend.
All right. Well, again, getting back to bringing it full circle, a lot of your topics, I enjoyed the debate, especially with the guy last night. But I do think there is this underlying just bitter frustration with people. And I think that's why stuff like in North Carolina, people lose their minds because of stuff like that in Berkeley. There are people that go home and just shake their head. Now,
drugs I'm on is it's called success, and it's called intelligence.
Okay, sorry, that was Steve. I'm sorry, he interrupted you. Steve likes to interrupt people.
Does that
Scott,
sometimes.
I'm sorry. Wait, Steve, Scott. The guy we did have on last night, he is the next Albert Einstein, from what I've heard.
You're talking to a guy who has 138 IQ, buddy.
I'm sorry, I had to play that again. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Scott. I'm sorry.
No, I just keep it going, guys. I'll follow you.
Thank you, Scott. Scott, I appreciate your call. I always do.
I want to talk
Thank you.
about more California stuff. So there was a doctor, Dr. Drew, I want to say Pilsky today. He made a statement. Is Herman Cain, is he ready to go? No. He's not ready to go. Okay. He made a statement that because of the homeless population in Los Angeles, and the fact that they have no rodent pest control plan, that there is a good chance that the bubonic plague could be hitting Los Angeles very soon.
Oh.
And because of all these, you've seen Skid Row.
I have.
It is literally terrifying.
I have.
It's 2.5. It's 3 or 4 blocks. There's probably probably 25,000 people with tents and just drugs and urine and everything. It's terrifying. He said that when those homeless people are defecating and urinating, that just goes into the Pacific Ocean and just pollutes everything.
Oh,
but there is a legitimate chance. And I'm going to try to get this guy on the show to talk about it because we talk about it all the time. There's a legitimate chance that the bubonic plague or the Black Plague, which wiped out a lot of Eastern Europe hundreds of years ago, could hit L.A. very soon with typhus and other things just because of how unkept the homeless population is and how there is no plan for rodents.
I'm going to be honest. I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, so I can't comment. I really don't. I have not been covering this. I really don't. This is your expertise, not mine. I really don't. I don't know what to add to this. Rodents? I don't know. I got plenty of those in my car.
You don't think that's crazy?
No, it is crazy. It is crazy. 257-539. I'm just saying I've never heard of it before. 702-257-5396. All right, let's go to a friend of the show. He joins us every Monday. Usually defends me when it comes to Donald Trump. That is Chris Wynn joining us on the line. Chris, thanks for calling in.
What's going on, guys?
What's up, Chris?
Intriguing topic, to say the least. And I got to say, the IQ drop of Steve Sanchez, one of the best in talk radio. Oh, my God.
You're talking to a guy who has 138 IQ, buddy.
It's so legit. I love it. But, JD, I got to line you up on your position here. I'm trying to figure out where you're coming from here. Did you just say that based on what she has said or comments she's made regarding the country, that it just somehow justifies any type of racism towards her?
No, I'm
don't
not
really
saying that,
understand what you mean.
Chris. I am saying that if she hadn't done what she has done, if she didn't have baggage, then racism could be a legitimate reason. But in this case, I don't think you can definitely say that it's racism. It could be a lot of reasons because of what she has done. She isn't exactly. She doesn't have a great reputation. And she hasn't said. Well, Chris, it's not like a slur was dropped. They said send her back. It could be for a number of reasons. It could be because of her skin color, absolutely. But it could be because of what she has said and what she has done in her time in office, and the fact that she married her brother to get in the country and lied about it.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, but earlier on the week, on Monday, JD, you actually made the case that it was racism on Monday when you said that it was, look, there's 4 women of color, so it's obvious, there's no question.
No, but that was a totally different conversation. That was the Trump. That was Trump when he called out the squad, and I said because three of them were born in the United States. And the only way that he said, go back to where you come from, and the fact that 3 of them are born in the United States, the only way you could assume where they come from is by looking at their skin color, which makes race part of the equation by default. This is a totally different situation. But race has been talked about so much lately.
Well, it's been talked about for the last 6 days. That's why, because the tweet was racist, because the chant 2 days ago was racist. That's why America's been up in arms for 6 days, is because they are. I don't understand why it's even a debate. You guys, for the first 15, 20 minutes of the show, we're going back and forth, kind of splitting hairs about, there's ignorant people in the crowd. Are they racist or ignorant? Look, it was a racist chant. It was a racist tweet. There's no debate. Anybody trying to...
So Chris, you don't have to use a slur to be racist?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
I agree.
Because that's why his tweet was racist. That's why the chant was racist. Because
no, I agree the tweet was racially charged by default, but you can't say that the sender back was definitively 100% racist. And you can't say that was the only reason they were saying it. I'm saying there's other reasons. She has other reasons because she has done other things.
Go ahead, Chris. Ask him the question.
Real quick, Ryan. One quick question. What's the difference between racially charged and being racist?
Go ahead,
Racially charged is about race. Racist is derogatory based on race.
Well, I would contend that the average Joe in America is not going to be able to tell the difference between what's racially charged or what's a racist statement. And it was a racist tweet. It was a racist chant. There's a method to madness. There's a reason why millions of people in America are up in arms the last 6 days about what has transpired, is because it's a watershed moment in America where... Well,
Chris, let's be honest. About 180 million people in America have been up in arms for 2 years since Trump became president, so that's nothing new.
Well, that's true. That's 100% true. But pertaining to this question, though, it's just I don't understand why it's even a debate as far as whether or not he was racist or whether or not that crowd...
I'm saying it would be much more likely to be racist if Omar had a great record and hadn't called out Jewish people and hadn't been accused of marrying her brother and hadn't ever not denounced Antifa, et cetera, et cetera. Had she just had a nice, clean record with no baggage, then it would be much more likely to be racist. But there's other reasons why people want her to leave the country and want her out of office.
Brian,
I agree. They should have said kick her out.
African Americans, yeah, like if there's some criminal rapist black guy, right? Just because he's a horrible individual, or just because they say something about the critical of the country, doesn't rationalize and doesn't give you homage to go ahead and be racist or say.
No, you know why? Hold on. Let me just interject here. You know why, Chris? You know why? Because it insults everybody else in that race. That's why. You are generalizing and saying, well, this woman, Omar, she might have said so-and-so about Jews, so we're going to say go back to your country, and it insults all the other people out there that don't have a problem with Israelis or Jewish people. It is insulting to the entire race. That's why we should not make it acceptable. And in my opinion, JD, it shouldn't matter what she's done in her past.
But it's much more likely to make a statement like that to somebody who has actually done something.
I can generalize like that.
If there's no bag, well, you could do that for anything then. You could apply that to any type of situation.
I could say most likely. You could generalize and say if you're wearing a MAGA hat.
I think racism exists exists when a slur is used or a derogatory term is used. That to me is more racist than anything else. This wasn't racist to me because there's more reasons that people could be wanting her out of the country and definitely out of office.
See, it sounds to me like you're rationalizing.
No, JD, that's not true because JD,
I'm not rationalizing.
There's a trope that's been going on since the 50s, 60s, and before that, where they tell where black people have been told in this country to go back to where you came from, go back to Africa. Okay, that's not. They're not calling the N-word, right? They're not dropping some horrible racist language or anything, but it's an insinuation. You're saying something to somebody that would tell them that you're the other, that you need to go away, that you need to get out of this country because you are not a true American, right?
Hey, Chris, again, I'm not saying I agree with it, but I think it was ignorant. I think it was stupid. I think those people are very, very impressionable, and I think there are a lot of closet racists who have been kind of dormant while Obama was president and while Bush was president, and Trump's presidency has kind of enabled them to do different things.
Here's what I want.
I do think that,
Chris,
but I don't think it was definitively racist. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
hold on, Chris. Chris, here's what I want to do if you have a few minutes here. Chris, do you have a couple minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. We have a caller on the line that I know is not the biggest fan of yours. I want you two to talk about this issue. We have caller JD who's calling in. I'm going to give him ample time to respond, and I want both of you to debate this issue. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay, JD, are you there?
I am. Thank you very much, sir.
JD, the floor is yours. You are on with Chris Wynn.
Okay, if I could just make a few quick points. First of all, this woman made the statement, and compare it to send her home. That's regarding 9/11 and what you were very passionate about a couple of days ago, having relatives there in New York City, being close to there. She made the statement, some people did something on 9/11. And how does that?
I remember. Yeah.
How does that compare with send her home? And then number two, what would have been the outrage if people in Germany in 1933 said, send Hitler back to Austria? And you made a comment regarding McCain many times and how
JD, hold on, you're throwing a lot of things in there, and I want Chris.
This is the last thing.
JD, let me respond.
This is the last thing. Let me finish, please. How Obama was so gracious. John Lewis, the congressman from Georgia, during the 2008 campaign, called McCain a racist similar to George Wallace, and Mr. Obama said nothing to refute that.
JD, you just threw a lot of stuff out there to chew on. And
three things, Chris. Only three things.
You brought Barack Obama into the conversation for some reason, which makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Well, you didn't hear about what Brian said earlier.
Well, you're going to let me respond. Let me address the first thing you said. You talked about Ilhan Omar and the statement that she made, okay? That is absolutely can be construed as insensitive, obviously, to the victims in 9/11, okay, to the families of 9/11. There's no question that it was, she could have worded it differently. But if you listen to the entire statement that she made, it was basically she was talking about the impact on Arab Americans and Muslim Americans and Muslims around the world, for that matter, and civil liberties and how they were treated. That was the context of what she was talking about. She wasn't trying to be disgraceful to the victims of 9/11. But that being said, she did say it. Are you trying to justify racism against her? Are you trying to say
I love Chris how
to tell her to go back to where she's from? Which, by the way, she's from
You're asking me a question, Chris. You want me to answer it?
Well, no. You tossed out like four things for me to address. And I'm addressing the first one.
Three, Chris.
It's going to take me.
Can I say one thing? Give me 20 seconds here. Let me just say one thing. To compare Adolf Hitler, a man who's responsible for killing 7 million Jews, to Omar is utterly ridiculous. Go ahead.
Yes, and you brought up. Look, is it a justification, JD? You brought up Hitler too. Hitler back in the 1930s to go back to Austria. I don't know where that is even a comparison to what's going on here in 2019, but somehow you want to think it is. Okay. The comments by President Trump on Sunday were an abomination. They were horrendous. They were disgraceful, and they were racist. The chant by the crowd the other night was disgraceful. It was un-American, okay? And, yes, it was racist, all right?
May I say something to you?
Justification for it. Yeah, go ahead.
I can't believe how everybody is a mind reader with these words that we connotate as racist. Is everything so thin-skinned you cannot say anything? Now You cannot say manhole. They want it to be called what the heck is the new term for a manhole? A maintenance hole. And so what would Manhattan be called? I don't know. So we use the term racist, and we use the definitions of people's words, like accusations that everybody is making about Trump. Omar called him a fascist today. So are we to believe her that he's a fascist and she's not a crackpot? I mean, I really believe these four women are loons. I believe they're nutcases.
Well, see, look, that's your personal opinion. They are four women of color who happen to be freshman congresswomen, okay? We've been living with people of color for our whole lives. I mean, all of a sudden we discovered they're women of color. What does that have to do with the price of tea in China, JD? I mean, therefore, the reason why this is I talked about this already with JD and Brian. The reason why for the last 6 days it's become a huge topic of debate for the last 6 days is because they are four women who are freshman congresswomen.
No, Chris, the reason why it's been a huge topic for 6 days is because the Democrats want to tarnish Trump for the election in 2020. They can't beat him on anything so far. So now he's a fascist and he's a racist.
No, hold on, JD.
Hammer until November.
Now, so JD, Donald Trump is the victim now. Okay, Donald Trump is the one who
they're trying to disparage him.
And it's not
in every way.
JD, okay, let me interject. Gentlemen, let me interject real quickly and say, JD, you might find this hard to believe. I did not vote for Hillary Clinton. I was not angry when Donald Trump won the presidency. I am saying this because it is pretty obvious, and I am shocked that there are still people like you that will not admit that telling somebody to go back to their country, there's no racial connotations whatsoever, and you're not disgusted by it. This has, and I'm talking only for myself. I don't speak for the Democrats.
He didn't say it.
He said a couple days ago you saw his Twitter feed. You saw exactly what he said on his Twitter feed. He absolutely said go back to their country. That's exactly what he said. 3 of those women were born in the United States of America, and you want to justify it. You want to justify those racist...
No.
You keep saying no. It sounds like you're blaming Democrats for going after Donald Trump for saying racist things. That is utterly ridiculous.
They're trying to win an election, Brian.
And what about the Republicans and the few of them that have stepped up and said that, yes, there were racist connotations to it?
They're squeaky. They're in districts.
Right.
They want to keep their seats.
Have you ever criticized...
That's why they all voted for this responder thing in New York.
Have you ever criticized? Here's the thing.
Anything about
has Donald Trump ever made a mistake in your mind? Ever? Has he ever said anything out of line in your opinion? Ever? Or is he perfect? Donald Trump. I've never heard you.
Of course.
Name me one thing. Name me one thing.
You know what, Brian? You'll find this hard to believe. He was my 17th choice in the
What mistakes has he made as president?
Pardon me?
What mistakes has he made as president?
Well, let's go back to number one, that the first day that he was in office and he made his inaugural address, he was criticized. He had no honeymoon, so then he started fighting back. The first week he was in office, his phone was tapped in the Oval Office.
That's not what I asked you. I said what mistakes. That's not what I asked you. That's not what I asked you. You can't even answer the question with all due respect. I didn't ask you to defend him and make him out to be the victim, which you seem to be doing in this case with Omar and all this crap. I asked you a very specific question, and I want a specific answer. What mistakes has Donald Trump made as president?
First of all, his mistakes have been that he is a continual Twitter tweeter. He makes mistakes in his tweets every day. He says things that are not accurate. He does not have the accuracy of numbers at many times. I am amazed sometimes that people don't write down things for him and say 3.3% instead of 3%. There are so many stupid
he is
things
73 years old.
that the news media, they will have a picture of 937 million, and then they'll make the statement almost a million. I don't know. There's something wrong in our society.
So you're saying that
we cannot be accurate.
So you're making it out on Twitter that if he says a stat that's 3.3%, that's really 3%. So you're not going to call him out for any of the horrific things he said about women's looks on Twitter. You're not going to call him
horrible. Again, The man is rude and crude. And here's what I can't understand. You may find this surprising. I'm not a college educated man. I've been around the world a couple of times. I've met a lot of real big, important people, and I've learned a lot by how they act and how they talk. I would have thought that Donald Trump would have had more sophistication with all of the leaders of the world in business and all the business people he'd met, that he would be a little bit more refined. But I think Donald Trump, when you break it down, is a blue-collar guy.
All right, JD, let's. I appreciate your honesty. Let's let Chris Wynn back in here. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, well, I just want to jump back towards the squad because you guys are getting on Donald Trump and going back to 2016 and what he's done wrong. Look, this whole past week, okay, with respect to the squad, there's been a lot.
I can't hear you, Chris.
There's been a lot of generalization going on. There's been a lot of statements like they hate America and all of them have something against the Jewish people and against Israel. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of this stuff is not true. Okay. Yes, she's made a couple.
What do you mean a lot is not true? She was on the floor yesterday with a resolution. With a resolution about Israel to quarantine them.
Okay, JD, they don't hate America. Okay.
Yes, Chris.
A lot of this.
How do you know that?
JD, let me.
Yes, Chris.
How do you know? How do you not know that? Okay, how do you know for sure that they?
There are people that set off bombs. There are people that do all kinds of terrorist attacks that are Americans. They hate America.
Analogy. Let me use a very good sports analogy. Since part of this show is about sports, okay? I happen to be a Detroit Lions fan. Okay, I happen to criticize the Detroit Lions many times. There are a lot of fans around this country that are fans of teams. They criticize their team. Does that mean that you should strip them of their fandom? Does that mean that if you're in America...
That has no relevance to what we're talking about.
What does that... Okay, so if you criticize America, you think that you should have to leave America? Is that what you're trying to say?
Chris, this is an epic filibuster.
Or you criticize policy in the country, you should have to leave. Is that what you think it is?
Let me talk. When you criticize America and there's acts that you have made and words and statements that you have said that mean that you don't like America or you're criticizing it, yes, then there's a problem.
Well, that's a very general statement. There's a problem. People do it all the time. Donald Trump, the presidential candidate back in 2015 and 2016, was talking about how this place is a cesspool. He was talking about how this country was in shambles and how he was going to be the one. He himself was going to be the one to fix it.
But he was talking about specific. He was talking about trade imbalances. He was talking about the people in Washington, D.C. who were selling the country down the drain for their own benefit.
He was talking about a lot of things, JD. He was talking about a lot of things, and you could construe them in a way where he was criticizing
JD, calm down.
the country.
Need a glass of water, that's fine.
A lot
Take
of
a 20-second break, walk away. It's okay.
Yeah, so, look.
JD, I would like you to be a little more demonstrative in this show because, you are the co-host, and I'm glad when you speak up. I would really like for you to speak up more.
I appreciate that, JD. I've got my fist clenched right now.
All right,
well, a sneer on my face.
Look, I'm just making the case that it was a racist tweet. Okay, it was a racist chant that went down in North Carolina. Those people should be all ashamed of themselves. You guys talked about it in the show, Brian and JD, about the little girl with her parents being, whether they're ignorant, whether they're racist, whatever.
Well, how about when Brian told the kid that had called in to tell his father he was a dumbbell for supporting Trump and going home and
JD, okay, let me respond to that. Let me respond, guys. Everyone's got to be quiet.
JD, you've got a great memory.
Everybody's got to be quiet now so I can respond to that because JD now just called me out. JD, let me show you what a moron you are for making that comparison, okay?
Okay, moron. Moron.
Okay, let me show you. Let me explain this to you. You're comparing a chant, telling someone that is a refugee to go back to your country, to me making a joke to a father that's sitting there with his son, calling somebody a moron because they're a Trump supporter. I laughed and joked about it. We were having a good time. What kind of moron are you to compare? Excuse me. Now you be quiet. Excuse me.
When he went home to bed that night.
Excuse me. I'm responding to you. Okay, JD. We're going to end this segment by this.
I'm so confused right now.
That analogy that you just made, you made a joke. Okay, you're a joke for bringing that up. Me making a joke to a father and a son saying, "Tell your dad he's a moron for a Trump supporter," laughing about it was levity. It was a joke. We're talking. Let me finish. Be quiet. Oh, be quiet. All right. You see, JD?
I've got a question.
All right.
Everybody.
Well, no, I want to hang up on JD. JD, this is why you'll never fill in for us on this show. You've asked me several times that you want to fill in. You'd be a terrible host, and get off my show.
Hey, JD, that was a great conversation.
Wow, that was some crazy stuff. You got
We'll do that again.
all kinds of fired up
We'll do that
there.
again very soon. Hey, I got a statement here. My question is, are there?
By the way, for the record, I hung up on JD.
Well done. Are there levels of racism? You call this racist. So what would it be if there was a racial slur attached to it? Would that be more racist? My problem is there's so many things that can be construed racist at this point, and being called a racist, you can lose your job, you can lose your life. So I don't want that term to be thrown around since it has these very, very has really, really damaging connotations when it's actually applied to somebody, whether it's deserved or not. I don't want that term to just be tossed around. That's why when a slur is involved, to me, that's legitimately racist. Otherwise, implied racism, like this situation is to me, because of what can happen to you in this country right now, but by being considered racist, that's an issue for me.
Chris, I want you to respond to that, but before I do, I just want to give some context to what I just said to JD, because I'm always going to be honest on this show, not JD, my co-host. I'm talking about JD, the caller who called in. He has stalked our show. He left a note here one day, and Mr. JD Sharp can attest to this. He left a note to both of us basically begging to fill in for us. He wanted to fill in. He showed up to one of our remotes, went up to me, said I was a shock jock. Okay, I don't even know if he knows what that means. And then he said he wanted to fill in a day that we're sick or something. That is why he will never, ever fill in on this show. Never, Chris. You will be that guy. That is why he will never do it. He is comparing what is a racist chant, or if you want to make the argument it's not racist, but it's meet the presidency, whatever, to me, joking with a dad and a son in a car, that is completely ridiculous.
My only advice to you, JD, next time we get you in a debate is to have a nice 20 ounce of water to your left.
Go ahead, Chris.
Hydration never hurt anybody, right,
especially in a debate against C-Win and Brian Shapiro at the same time.
I was staying out of it. I
need a little bit of water.
Listen, I was staying out of it. We get your point.
To keep your vocal cords.
We understand your point. We get it. Yes, he needed to drink some water. Listen, he interjected me into this. I was staying out of the conversation. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, here's the thing. To me, with JD the caller, it's he's trying to justify racism, or he's trying to say something that is racism is not racism, So to me, it's just it's a no-win situation for him.
But Chris,
right?
when you call something racist, if it is racist, people literally lose their jobs. They lose their ability to make money. That's why I don't like the term just being tossed onto anything. To me, solid actual racism is when a term is applied or when something is legitimately derogatory. This was kind of a vague area because there were several reasons that people may not want her in the United States. Race could be one of those reasons, but there's other reasons too. So you can't just definitively state that every single person who is chanting that is absolutely racist. That's all I'm saying. Is that me justifying it? No, but it's me more breaking it down logistically.
I think you're overthinking it, JD. It's not. You want to say it's partially racist.
Well, I'd rather overthink it than call 2,000 people absolutely racist.
It's not rocket science to figure it out, okay? If someone says something that is a trope that goes back years to African Americans, which is what this is when you tell somebody to go back to where they're from, especially given the circumstances here where all four of these women are American citizens who happen to be elected lawmakers, then you're in a no-win situation.
Okay, so Chris, what if they had used a term? What if they had used a derogatory term along with send her whatever back?
Then that's worse.
Okay, and
believe it or not,
what does that mean?
Racism, but still racism. It's just worse.
So
I don't understand. I don't understand the point you're trying to make. So yes, if they drop,
my point is that racism. The word racist is thrown around way too much, and when it is applied, when it sticks on you, it doesn't leave you, and it can cost you your job. And that to me is an issue because of how lightly it's thrown around.
But JD, you guys talked about that earlier in the show, and you brought up the workplace. And there's absolutely, JD and Brian, by the way, you guys didn't bring this up. There are laws on the books in the United States government that if you say, for example, and you use the example, if you're at any other job, say you're at the post office, and you happen to have an Indian American person that works there with you, and you tell that person to go back, you know what happens? Not only do you get fired, not only are you escorted off the property, but not only that, the Indian American employee can sue you and sue the company for racial discrimination. And the government of the United States will have attorneys that will come in and support you that person.
Okay.
And
What if this?
Yes, you're right. It is.
Okay. What if this
law.
person is at the company and is constantly complaining about the company? And you say get out of the company.
Okay, let's take a call on this. Let's let Chris address your question in a second here, but we have a few people on hold. Johnny, I believe Randy is next on the Vegas Take, if I'm not mistaken, right? Randy, go ahead. You're on with us here on the Vegas Take. Go ahead, Randy.
What's up, Randy?
Brian, JD, I love you guys. Let me host the show so I can talk about UNLV. Let me on. Come on, let me on.
Hey, Randy,
UNLV,
only if you can
Brian,
guarantee
Chris,
us.
Let me on, please.
Randy, can I ask you a
me host the
question?
show.
Randy, let me ask you a question because this is pertinent to this conversation, and I love it when you call in. If somebody said to you, go back to your country, what would be your response to that?
I would just rise above it.
Do you think it's racist, Randy? Do you think it's racist?
I would rise above it, and I wouldn't get in the dirt with them. I would just tell them, come to a UNLV game, and we can sit and talk.
Okay.
That's what I would do. And by the way, let me host the show, but just
listen, Randy. I'd rather have you, Randy. I would rather have you host the show any day rather than JD. I'll tell you that right now.
JD, Arkansas State is giving UNLV +3. Bet the house. I love you guys. I can't wait to get your morning.
Thanks, Randy. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Again, I'm not talking about JD.
I want to enjoy an Otzelburger with Randy sometime.
Oh, Randy's a good guy. I would rather have Randy host the show any day.
Awesome, by the way. Yes, they will.
Oh, it will. Well, Mr. Wynn, this was quite a shocking segment. Unexpected, kind of like when we had Kim Goldman on and all of a sudden OJ's attorney calls in.
I would like JD to call in to Johnny and confirm that he's okay because he was really fired up.
We don't want. Yeah.
And I'm amazed actually that JD thought I was some type of mind reader. That I got my ego on the pulse of the American culture when it comes to racism. That was pretty impressive.
Well, Chris, here's the good news, my friend. You're going to be joining us on Monday, and we are going to continue this conversation with you live in studio, my friend.
Boy, I just cannot wait for that.
And Kim Goldman and Kim Goldman.
Really looking forward to that.
Kim Goldman's going to be joining us in studio, not in studio, but she's going to be joining us as well on Monday.
Hey, true or false, Brian? This is the longest segment we've ever had.
This is a long one, and we have Chris Wynn and JD to thank for that one. Chris, thanks for calling in. We appreciate it.
Hey, you guys have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday,
all right.
Okay?
Yeah, we did go
see you on Sunday.
Yeah,
Chris,
that's right.
We got a party.
We got a little pool party going. Yes. All right, Chris. Thank you so much. You're right. JD's right. That segment did go a little longer.
That was a 44-minute segment.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to the Vegas Take. All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. Thanks so much for joining us. Again, a reminder to all of our loyal listeners out there, and we appreciate all of you, even the ones that disagree with me and call us names. That's fine. We are switching hours, and we are expanding the show. Thank you to all the listeners out there for helping to make this happen. We are going to be moving 9 a.m. to noon starting August 12th. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We are really, really looking forward to that. Expanding the show means it's going to be a lot more work and a lot more content. We are ready for it. We are going to deliver it to you.
But we get to see a lot more games.
Well, you mean we're going to be able to watch games?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We get to actually attend games happen at night.
Nobody really cares about that.
Oh, they care. We're going to get guests that right now are performing. We'll get them in the morning.
Well, yeah, I guess what he's trying to say is our celebrity guests will be better, even though I think we're doing a pretty good job now. But, yeah, I agree with that. And it'll be nice to have the entire day. It'll be nice. But we're looking forward to it, folks. We want to be the first to deliver top news of the day, national news, local news, sports, and do it from a take from Vegas. That's why it's called the Vegas Take. That's why we're doing it this way. A take from somebody like us. Me, personally, I've lived in this town for 20 years. And, we're gonna be doing it, and we're going to be putting our foot down. We'll be ready to go. Pedal to the metal, baby. It's going to be a lot of fun.
This is a unique show in a unique market.
I agree with that. I wanted to bring this up because this is sort of breaking news. If you recall at the beginning of the show, we talked a little bit about Dan Le Batard slamming President Trump and he calling his network cowardly. Well, guess what? To no surprise, ESPN today sent out a memo to all of their employees, all of them, reminded about their policy that they are not allowed to talk politics. I'm talking about ESPN throughout the board. Radio, TV, everything.
Well, Jamel Hill got fired for that.
But they are saying that they are only allowing them to talk politics when it crosses with sports. And I think that is a big reason why ESPN is failing as a network. It's why the ratings are not there, because they are failing to address certain issues and people want to talk about it.
They're trying to have it both ways. Sometimes they talk about politics and they integrate it into sports, and sometimes they don't.
But Dan Le Batard, who is one of their stars, let's just call it what it is, he gets ratings.
Yeah.
And he goes out today and he calls some of the people at ESPN cowards, which absolutely they are. They absolutely are cowards. And the day that Le Batard does this, what is ESPN? What do they decide to do?
I mean, Brian, they had a lot of coverage of the Kaepernick situation, though.
Because
they
that
had a lot of coverage of Rapinoe.
Because that crossed sports. Like I said, I mean, ESPN said they can talk politics as long as it crosses sports. But this did not. And ESPN is saying stay away from it. And I'm saying they're cowards. They're making a big mistake. And the day that one of their star hosts, Dan Le Batard, criticizes them for it, they do the thing that anybody would do, curling up in a corner. They send a memo to their employees reminding them, we can't talk about politics unless it crosses sports. That is a big mistake. That is wrong. And Dan Le Batard is 100% right. He is 100% correct. And I'm tired of these people. Now, look, Jamel Hill, she called Trump, a KKK member. There are certain lines that you probably shouldn't cross. And I do believe she crossed that line. But if you want to say, look, President Trump's tweet can be construed as racist, I don't think that's a fireable offense. In fact, I would agree with it. But you don't. The point I'm trying to make is we don't have to agree with everybody. Doesn't mean that everybody should be fired or be censored. We're going to disagree with one another. That's fine. That's what makes the world go round. But there is a reason why ESPN nationally is suffering. They're not making the money they used to make. First of all, some of their national hosts, that Dan Patrick, for example, he left. And a couple of their hosts that were breaking in the dough, they left as well. Colin Cowherd is another one. He left. They're just not getting the ratings that they once were. Now, people like Stephen A. Smith. I don't. But I guess that's subjective. That's a matter of taste. He gets ratings. He's got a very powerful show. But as a whole, ESPN TV and radio, they are not making the money. They're not getting the ratings that they once got. And I think there's a lot of different reasons for that. And I certainly think that this is one of them. I absolutely think that this is one of them. And I agree with Dan Le Batard. I have a ton of respect for him for standing up some of the cowards, the executives over there at ESPN. I certainly have a newfound respect for him for speaking out on what is right and what is wrong in this world. It shouldn't have to cross with sports to talk about it. Believe it or not, there are a lot of people that tune into ESPN, in my opinion, that are sports junkies that actually also don't mind a little bit of political talk. But people at ESPN are afraid of that because, we might offend some people. I'm so sick of it. It makes me want to throw up.
And that's the beauty of owning your own content and being able to talk about basically whatever you want to. We cover sports, politics, gambling, entertainment. We do it independently. We cross both areas, cross both genres, both industries all the time on a consistent basis, and we do not care.
Well, I mean, there's certainly some truth to that.
All the truth.
But I'll say it again, the people over there, these executives at ESPN are I agree with Dan Le Batard wholeheartedly, 100%. They're a bunch of cowards.
You know what? And that is ballsy considering Dan Le Batard is syndicated in about 200 markets.
No, he is.
And he probably makes $5 million a year.
I would say he probably makes more than that. Would not surprise me. He also does a TV show. No, but I have respect for him. Listen, I'm glad that he called her the ESPN executives out. And I'm sure he had a talking to. I don't think he said anything over the line. But anyway, folks, coming up on Monday, it's going to be a fun weekend, by the way. Of course, we got the British Open, so we'll be talking about that on Monday. What will Donald Trump say next? Which person will he say to go back to their country next? Well, we'll cover that, I promise you. Chris Flynn will be joining us in studio. And if you recall, this past Monday, we had Kim Goldman on, the sister to the late Ronald Goldman, and then OJ's attorney called in right in the middle of the interview. Well, Kim Goldman has agreed to come back on, and there will be no interruptions this time. So that'll be a lot of interesting and fun as well to talk to her. We appreciate that. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We always appreciate it. And a reminder, we are moving 9 a.m. to noon starting August 12th. Thanks to all of you out there. We'll be back at you. I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend. I'm going to go home and get some sleep. We'll be back Monday. What is that, 48 hours. Have a good one, everybody.